Evan Hale stood at his post near the entrance of the Virel Royal Hall, holding his metal staff with both hands. He looked like the weakest guard among the towering alien warriors who served the Queen. They were tall, broad-shouldered, and covered in armor that shimmered like scaled stone. Evan, in comparison, looked small. His armor was light, his shoulders narrow, and his eyes soft. He rarely spoke. Most of the alien guards believed he was timid because he avoided eye contact and kept his voice low. They did not understand that humans acted differently, and not every human was loud or bold. Evan simply did his duty quietly. Every morning, the alien guards talked loudly, joked, and challenged each other. Evan stood near them, but never joined their conversations. Many forgot he was even there. But he did not mind. He had come from Earth as part of a peace exchange. His goal was simple: complete his service and return home safely. He did not expect anything special. He definitely did not expect the Queen of the Virel Dominion to ever notice him. Queen Saravara was feared across many systems. Her presence alone made the air heavy. She walked with grace and power, her tall frame covered in violet armor that matched the natural markings on her skin. Her crown was sharp, almost like a carved crystal, and her eyes glowed faintly with the strength of her species. She was known as a proud ruler, strict and unshakable. Even her highest generals lowered their heads when she passed. Evan always bowed deeper than anyone else. He was terrified of accidentally disrespecting her. He thought she would never spare him a glance. Humans were considered physically weaker compared to the Virel people, and Evan was gentle even by human standards. He assumed he blended into the background. But everything changed on a storm-lit evening. A diplomatic meeting had filled the royal hall with ambassadors from neighboring planets. Crystals along the walls glowed in shifting colors, highlighting the tension in the room. Evan was stationed near a decorative pillar, keeping a calm posture even though he felt nervous watching hundreds of powerful beings gather. Queen Saravara sat on her throne, speaking firmly to the ambassadors. Her voice carried strength and confidence. Evan admired how focused she was. He found himself looking at her more often than he realized, though he always forced his eyes away out of respect. Suddenly, the room trembled. A deep cracking sound echoed across the hall. One of the giant support structures above the hall had weakened due to recent asteroid storms. Before anyone could react, a massive ceiling beam snapped loose, crashing downward straight toward the Queen. Screams erupted. Alien guards rushed forward, but were too far. Evan was closest. Fear surged through him. His hands shook, but he did not think. His legs moved on their own. Without understanding how he found courage, he sprinted toward the Queen. His breath hitched, and panic filled his mind. Yet he moved anyway. As the beam fell, Evan jumped in front of her. He raised his staff, knowing it might not help much, but he still tried. The beam slammed down with tremendous force. Dust exploded around them. Evan braced himself, expecting pain, but another alien guard managed to deflect most of the beam just in time. Evan's action, however, had placed him directly between danger and the Queen. When the dust cleared, Evan stood trembling, arms still raised, staff shaking in his hands. His eyes were wide. His legs felt weak, but he did not run away. He stayed in place, protecting her until the room was secure. Queen Saravara stared at him with disbelief. Of all the guards, the timid human had moved first. His fear was obvious, his breath was unsteady, and his hands trembled. But he had not hesitated. He had chosen to shield her with his own body. One of the generals barked, "Human, step aside. You could have died." Evan lowered his staff slowly, ashamed that he was shaking so much. "Sorry," he whispered. "I didn't think." Saravara rose from her throne. Her steps were steady, her expression unreadable. She stood in front of Evan, towering over him, He waited for anger. He expected to be scolded for stepping so close to her. But instead, she spoke in a calm voice. "You were afraid?" Evan swallowed hard. "Yes, Your Majesty. And yet you moved." He nodded slightly. "I couldn't let you be harmed." Saravara watched him quietly. Her sharp eyes softened for a fleeting moment, though no one else noticed. Then she said, "Return to your post. Everyone. Everyone." "No." Evan bowed deeply, face burning with embarrassment. He walked back slowly, still shaking. The alien guards whispered among themselves. Why would the weakest human react faster than warriors trained for battle? It made no sense to them. But for the queen, something shifted inside. That night, Saravara dismissed the court early and returned to her private chambers. She tried focusing on war reports, trade agreements, and political updates, but her mind kept returning to the small human with trembling hands. She remembered the look in his eyes, fearful yet brave. She remembered how he had stood between her and danger without hesitation. She set the report aside. Why did she keep thinking about him? The next morning, Evan arrived early for his shift. He walked carefully, hoping no one would bring up yesterday's incident. However, the alien guards stared at him more than usual. Some looked impressed, others confused. A few seemed irritated that a human had overshadowed them. Evan kept his head down, doing his job quietly. Queen Saravara entered the hall shortly after. As always, the guards lined up and saluted. Evan bowed deeply, eyes fixed on the floor. He expected her to pass him without a second of attention. But she slowed down. Saravara's gaze flicked toward him for a brief moment. Only a few seconds. But Evan felt it like a shock. He wasn't sure if he imagined it. Throughout the day, she looked his way more than once. Evan tried not to notice. He told himself, "She must be checking if I'm shaking again. She must be making sure I'm not a nervous mess." He convinced himself she had no real interest in him. But Saravara was studying him quietly. She observed how he moved with care, how he listened to every command, how he stepped back instead of pushing forward like most guards. She saw something refreshing in his quiet nature. Something gentle. Something she had not witnessed in her own people for many years. It bothered her. Why would a queen feel curious about a timid human? Later that day, Saravara stood on her balcony overlooking the palace grounds. Her advisor, General Tavar, approached her. "My queen, the human guard is causing rumors." She raised an eyebrow. "That he shoved himself into danger yesterday. He acted in protection." "Yes, but some say he acted out of panic. Others say he was reckless. Many believe he is too fragile to be near your throne." "Right." Saravara crossed her arms. She did not appreciate others deciding value for her. He acted when no one else did. The general bowed his head. "Of course, my queen. But he is human." She turned her gaze toward the training fields. Evan was there, practicing alone with his staff. His movements were small, simple, but focused. He tried to learn silently, without drawing attention. Other guards trained loudly in groups, showing off their strength. But Evan practiced like he didn't want to disturb anyone. The queen watched him longer than she intended. General Tavar spoke carefully. "Should I reassign him?" Saravara's voice grew colder. "No." The general straightened instantly. "As you wish." After he left, Saravara exhaled slowly. Why did the idea of removing Evan from her presence feel wrong? Meanwhile, Evan had no idea the queen was watching him. He finished training and returned to his post. He wiped sweat from his forehead, wondering if he embarrassed himself again. He always felt like an outsider among the alien guards. He tried hard not to stand out. But his attempt to stay invisible was failing. That evening, as the palace lights dimmed, Evan walked down the quiet hallway leading to the quarters for guards. His footsteps echoed softly. He felt exhausted, but relieved that nothing dramatic happened today. He turned a corner and froze. Queen Saravara stood there, speaking quietly with two advisors. Evan quickly stepped aside, bowing deeply. He hoped she wouldn't notice him. But she did. Her eyes landed on him. For a moment, everything felt still. Saravara dismissed her advisors. She took a few steps toward Evan. His breath caught in his chest. He felt too small under her presence. She stopped right in front of him. "Guard, Evan," she said softly. He swallowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." Her gaze lowered slightly, as if studying him. "You acted bravely yesterday, despite your fear." He tried to shake his head. "I'm not brave, Your Majesty. I was just close." "You could have stepped back," she replied. Many did. Evan didn't know what to say. His face warmed with embarrassment. Saravara watched him carefully. There was a strange warmth in her expression, something gentle beneath her proud exterior. "You may continue your duties," she said at last. Evan bowed again, heart racing, and quickly walked away. But as he left, Saravara found herself still looking at him, confused by the new feeling growing within her. For years she kept her walls high, her emotions locked away, her heart untouchable. Yet this quiet human guard with trembling hands had slipped past her defenses without even trying. She didn't understand why. But she wanted to. That night, the palace whispered with new rumors. The proud queen had spoken softly to a timid human guard. Something unusual was beginning. Something no one could have predicted. And it was only the beginning. Evan Hale arrived at the palace earlier than usual the next morning. He walked quietly through the wide halls, trying to calm his nerves. After his small conversation with Queen Saravara the previous night, he slept little. He kept replaying her words in his mind, especially the way she had looked at him. He didn't understand why the queen would take the time to speak to someone like him. He was just a simple human guard, timid, soft-spoken, and easy to overlook. When he entered the training courtyard, the alien guards were already practicing. Their heavy footsteps shook the ground. Their sharp weapons clashed loudly in the air. They trained with fierce energy. Evan stayed far on one side and practiced alone, moving his staff in slow and careful motions. His style looked different from theirs. They relied on powerful strikes. He relied on small steps and balance. Some guards glanced at him, whispering among themselves. Ever since the incident, with the falling beam, people had looked at him differently. Not always with respect, sometimes with confusion, jealousy, or disbelief. But no one said anything directly to him. Evan tried to ignore it. He didn't want trouble. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to do his job quietly. But his quiet world was about to change. Queen Saravara stood at her study window, looking down at the courtyard. She watched the guards train every morning, but today her eyes went straight to Evan. He was practicing alone. His movements simple, but steady. She noticed how he corrected his form each time he made a mistake. She admired his patience. Her people preferred to attack problems with force. General Tavar approached her with reports. "My queen, the human seems to be attracting attention among the guards." Saravara's gaze did not move from Evan. "Is that a problem?" "No, my queen, only unexpected." Tavar paused. "There are questions about why you spoke to him." Saravara turned her eyes slightly. "I speak to many, but not in that tone," the general said softly. The queen said nothing. She didn't like discussing her voice, her tone, or anything that hinted at emotion. She preferred to be seen as strong, firm, and untouched by weakness. Yet something about Evan made her walls feel thinner. "Assign him to me today," she said. Tavar blinked in surprise. "My queen? Personally?" "Yes," she replied. "I require a guard for the diplomatic council." "But it is an order." Tavar bowed and left quickly. When Evan heard the instruction later, he nearly dropped his staff. Me? He asked, confused. He pointed to himself like he had misheard. Are you sure? Captain Lyrek, a tall alien woman with silver markings across her arms, nodded firmly. The Queen requested you. Personally. Evan's voice almost vanished. Why? Lyrek shrugged. You ask too many questions, human. Just go. Evan hurried to prepare. His hands shook as he fastened his light armor. He wasn't ready for this. Being the Queen's personal guard felt impossible. What if he embarrassed himself? What if he walked wrong? What if he talked wrong? He inhaled deeply, trying to calm himself. Minutes later, he stood beside the Queen's throne room door, waiting. When Queen Saravara entered, her steps were confident. Her eyes were calm. Her tall frame cast a long shadow behind her. She looked like a warrior sculpted from starlight. Evan bowed so quickly he nearly lost balance. Good morning, Your Majesty. Saravara observed him with a small flicker in her expression. Not quite a smile, but something gentler than usual. Good morning, Guard Evan. Her voice didn't sound like the voice she used with her generals. It was softer. The Queen walked ahead and Evan followed, keeping a respectful distance. His heart hammered every time she slowed, and he feared she might hear it. They entered the council hall, where ambassadors from different planets waited around a circular table. The Queen sat on her elevated seat. Evan stood behind her, trying to remain invisible. Negotiations began. Arguments broke out. Voices rose. Alien languages mixed into a storm of tension. Evan listened quietly. He was already nervous, but the crowd made it worse. Suddenly, during one heated argument, an ambassador knocked over a container of glowing powder. The powder burst into the air and drifted toward the Queen. Without thinking again, just like before, Evan stepped forward and raised his arm, blocking the cloud from reaching her. The powder landed harmlessly on his armor, before the room guards inhaled it and neutralized it. Everyone in the room stared. Queen Saravara turned slowly toward him. Their eyes met. For a moment, time felt strangely still. Evan felt his face warm. He quickly lowered his arm. Sorry, he whispered. Instinct. Saravara looked at his armor covered with a faint blue shimmer, and then back at his nervous expression. Something in her chest tightened unexpectedly. Later that day, after the meeting ended, Saravara walked beside Evan in the silent hallway. She stopped, near a balcony, overlooking the gardens. Guard Evan. He froze. Yes, Your Majesty? Why do you keep stepping forward? She asked calmly. He looked down. Because fear doesn't mean I shouldn't help. Saravara studied him. Many powerful warriors hesitate. You do not. Evan shook his head quickly. I hesitate a lot. I just don't want anyone to be hurt. What? Her eyes softened again. She didn't understand how someone so timid could possess such steady courage. She found herself growing even more curious. Walk with me, she said. He blinked. Me? Yes. They walked slowly through the quiet corridor. Evan kept his hands folded, trying to keep calm. The Queen watched him out of the corner of her eye. She could sense his nervousness. She wondered why a simple walk with her made him tremble. She wondered why she found his honesty peaceful. How long have you been in the Dominion? She asked. 8 months, Your Majesty. You miss your home? He nodded. Sometimes. Earth is loud. This place is quiet. Very different. And yet you serve here. I try my best. He said softly. Saravara looked ahead. Evan looked confused. In a bad way? In a way that I do not fully understand. They walked in silence for a moment. Evan felt strange walking beside her, speaking to her like a normal person. He was just a guard, but she spoke to him directly, without coldness. Soon they reached a private gallery filled with glowing crystals and old relics. Evan had never been inside this room. It was beautiful. He stared quietly, amazed by the way the crystals cast soft light around him. Saravara watched his reaction. His wonder felt pure, almost childlike. It made something warm rise in her chest. "Do humans not have rooms like this?" she asked. "Not like this," he said softly. "It's peaceful." She stepped closer. Evan's breath caught. She took one of the small crystal spheres from the shelf and handed it to him. "This one represents our planet's first era." Evan accepted it with both hands, treating it gently. "It's beautiful. Most guards do not even notice these things," she said. "Maybe they're busy," Evan replied. "Are you not busy?" "Oh, I am," he said quickly, almost stumbling over his words. "I just notice small things sometimes." Saravara studied him again. She found herself drawn to his simplicity, his honesty, his nature. He did not try to impress her. He did not use grand words. He did not act superior. He was just himself. And that was unusual. Before she could ask more, the alarm in the palace suddenly blared. A quick, sharp warning echoed through the halls. Saravara stiffened. An emergency alert. Evan immediately followed her as she went toward the source. When they reached the weapon chamber corridor, they found two masked intruders attempting to overload a control panel. Sparks flew around them. The intruders turned and aimed their stun weapons. Evan stepped forward without thinking again. He shouted, "Your Majesty! Get back!" He blocked the first shot with his staff, but the second hit him directly in the side. Evan fell to his knees with a cry of pain. His body shook from the stun blast. Saravara's eyes widened. She stepped forward with fierce speed and disarmed both intruders before they could fire again. Her movements were sharp, controlled, and powerful. The intruders were pinned down within seconds. When the danger passed, she turned instantly toward Evan. He was on one knee, breathing hard, trying to stay upright. Saravara knelt beside him, ignoring the gasps from arriving guards. A queen never knelt, especially not beside a guard. But she did. "Evan," she said quietly. He forced a smile. She placed a steady hand under his arm and helped him stand. The guards who arrived watched in shock. Never in their lives had they seen their queen hold someone with such care. She guided Evan toward the medical room herself, refusing assistance from anyone. Evan felt dizzy, embarrassed, and confused. "Your Majesty, you shouldn't." "I decide what I should or should not do," she said firmly. "Walk slowly." Her voice had a softness no one else had ever heard. Once they reached the medical chamber, she made sure he was seated. The healer began scanning him. Evan looked at her nervously. "I'm sorry for causing trouble." Saravara's expression hardened, but not in anger. In emotion, she couldn't hide. "You protected me again. You risked yourself again. Even though you fear things. Even though you are not a warrior." Evan opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He didn't know how to answer her. Saravara looked at him for a long moment. Her voice grew quieter. "You are unlike any guard I have known." The healer left them for a moment to prepare medication. In the silence, Saravara's eyes softened. The truth she had been avoiding bloomed in her heart like a bright spark. She cared about him. More than she should. More than was acceptable. And she didn't know how to control it anymore. Evan Hale spent the night resting in the medical wing, recovering from the stun blast. He lay on the soft bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. The Queen had helped him walk. She had knelt beside him. She had spoken to him with a voice so gentle he had thought he was dreaming. He didn't know what any of it meant, but the memory of her voice stayed warm in his mind. The palace whispered endlessly. By morning, rumors had already spread through every hallway, every guard post, every servant's corner. Many could not believe the Queen had personally assisted a timid human guard. When Evan stepped out of the medical wing the next morning, he felt dozens of eyes on him. He kept his gaze down, trying not to make anything worse. Captain Lyrek approached him with a sigh. "Human," she muttered. "You have caused a storm." "I didn't do anything," Evan said quietly. "That is the problem," Lyrek replied. "You keep doing things without trying, and the Queen keeps noticing." Evan's face turned red. "I didn't want attention." Lyrek gave him a long look. "You have it anyway." Before she could say more, General Tavar walked in, his expression tight. "Guard Evan. The Dominion Council requests your presence." Evan nearly stumbled. "The Council?" "Yes," Tavar said sharply. "Now." Evan followed him through the long corridors, hands sweating. His heart beat loudly. He expected punishment. Maybe he had broken protocol by stepping too close to the Queen. Maybe helping her was considered disrespect. Maybe he would be sent back to Earth in disgrace. The council chamber was filled with high-ranking nobles, their bright armor reflecting the crystal light. Evan walked in slowly, feeling smaller with every step. He bowed deeply. The council members whispered among themselves before one elder spoke. "Human, explain why the Queen keeps you near." Evan swallowed hard. "I don't know." "You are weak," another elder said. "Timid. Fragile. How could someone like you earn her attention?" "I don't know," Evan repeated, softer this time. General Tavar stepped forward. "He has acted with instinctive courage. He has protected the Queen twice now." "That is luck," a noble snapped. "Nothing more." Evan felt a sting in his chest, but he said nothing. Another council member glared. "You must be removed from her service. You are a distraction." Evan lowered his head. He wanted to speak, but he felt too nervous. The council continued arguing, some demanding he be reassigned, others insisting he was harmless, some accusing him of manipulating the Queen. Evan stood silently, wishing he could disappear. Then the heavy doors opened with a deep echo. Queen Saravara walked in. Everyone went still. Her presence filled the room like a wave of power. Her eyes landed instantly on Evan. He felt a strange warmth, as if she had searched for him first. The eldest noble bowed. "My Queen, we are discussing the issue regarding the human guard." Saravara stepped forward, gaze steady. Another noble spoke cautiously. "We believe he should be removed from your side. He is a danger to your dignity and your position." Saravara's expression sharpened. "Explain." "He is beneath your status," a woman said. "He weakens the image of our monarchy. He is fragile, fearful, and—" Saravara raised her hand. The woman fell silent instantly. The Queen turned her eyes toward Evan. He felt his breath freeze. Her stare was intense, but not cold. She could see he was nervous. She could see how small he felt in the room of powerful beings. Then Saravara faced the council. "This human," she said calmly. The council murmured. "He stood between me and danger twice," she continued. "Not because he is strong, not because he is trained, but because his heart is steady, even in fear." A noble protested. "My Queen, courage without strength is useless." "No," she said sharply. "Strength without courage is useless." Many warriors froze. He did not. Her voice echoed across the chamber. The nobles were stunned. Saravara continued. "If you question my decisions, you question my judgment. Do you claim I am blind to danger?" "No, my Queen," several nobles said quickly. "Then hear me clearly," Saravara said. "Evan remains." Evan nearly collapsed in shock. He had expected punishment, not protection. The council hesitated, but none dared challenge her further. With slow bows, they dismissed themselves. Soon the chamber was empty, except for Saravara and Evan. He stood awkwardly, afraid to look at her. Saravara approached him with slow steps. "You believe you caused trouble." Evan nodded weakly. I thought maybe I embarrassed you. She tilted her head slightly. You think too little of yourself. I'm just me, he whispered. And that, she replied, is what troubles me most. Evan finally lifted his eyes. Troubles you? Saravara took a slow breath, as if preparing to reveal something she had been holding inside for too long. Her voice softened, becoming almost human in its emotion. You make me feel something unfamiliar, she said. Something I have not allowed myself to feel in many years. Evan felt his chest tighten. I don't understand. You are timid, she said. You tremble. You speak softly. You hide. And yet, you move forward when others step back. You protect without thinking of your limits. You act with honesty. You are gentle, but you are not weak. Evan felt warm tears gathering but blinked them away quickly. Saravara continued, voice lower now. You have become important to me, Evan Hale. More important than any guard I have ever had. Evan took a step back in surprise. I don't deserve that. That is not your decision, she replied. It is mine. Silence grew between them. Evan felt his heart beating fast. He did not know what the Queen truly meant, but he felt the meaning was deeper than duty. Before he could respond, the palace alarm blared again. Not a simple alert, this was the red one. The one that meant danger at the highest level. Saravara turned sharply. A threat inside the palace. Evan followed her at once. They ran through the halls until they reached the solar chamber. Inside, a group of rebels had trapped palace staff. The rebels aimed volatile energy weapons at the ceiling's power crystals. If they fired, the entire wing would explode. Saravara stepped forward. Stand down. One rebel shouted. We will free our people, or this palace burns. They pulled the trigger. Evan moved before the Queen could. He dashed forward, grabbed a fallen shield plate, and raised it above his head. The energy bolt hit the shield and ricocheted upward, exploding safely against the reinforced ceiling. The blast knocked Evan backward. He crashed to the floor, coughing from the impact. His arms ached, and the shield slipped from his hands. Seeing him fall ignited something fierce in Saravara. She charged with silent fury, disarming the rebels with swift, precise strikes. Within moments, they were subdued. When the danger passed, Saravara ran to Evan. She knelt beside him again, not caring who watched. Evan, she said urgently, speak to me. I'm okay, he whispered, trying to sit up. You shielded the blast, she said, her voice trembling for the first time. Why do you keep risking yourself? Why do you put yourself in front of danger for me? Evan looked at her with a tired but sincere smile. Because you matter to me. Saravara froze. Evan continued softly. I know I shouldn't say things like that, but it's the truth. I'm scared all the time. I know I'm small. I know I'm not like your warriors. But when I see danger near you, something in me moves. Saravara stared at him, her heartbeat steady but heavy. You care for me? Yes, Evan whispered. I do. The Queen closed her eyes for a moment, as if sealing a decision deep inside her heart. When she opened them again, they glowed brighter. She stood and then extended her hand toward him. Evan hesitated only a second before placing his hand in hers. She pulled him gently to his feet. Instead of letting go, she kept holding his hand. Guards arrived and stared in disbelief. The Queen never touched anyone gently. But now, she stood hand in hand with a human guard. Saravara turned to her soldiers. Let the Dominion record this day. Her voice was strong and clear. This timid human stands with more courage than 1,000 warriors, and I choose him. Gasps filled the room. The news spread through the palace like wildfire. It spread into the city, then across the Dominion, then through the galaxy. The proud queen had chosen a timid human, not as a simple guard, not as a servant, but as someone important, someone close, someone whose value came from his heart. Evan stood beside her, overwhelmed, unsure what the future held but certain of one thing. He would never leave her side. And the galaxy, shocked by the impossible bond, would remember them forever.